start at the front of the trailer. Make sure this header board will support the load of whatever your cargo is. Make sure you don't leave any holes, bulges, or damage in this header board. You don't have any separating panels or missing rivets. Make sure you check the lights on the front of the trailer and all the way down the side. That's your lights, any reflectors, and the reflective tape. Once again, all those lights and reflectors, they got to be clean, not broken, not missing. Every light and reflector on the front of this truck and all the way down the side is going to be amber. You've also got to tell him you're going to make sure all this reflective tape is present. If you got an ABS warning light right here or near the back of that trailer toward the bottom, you've also got to tell him additionally that ABS warning light is clean, not broken, and not missing. And it's going to be amber also. Okay? The way it's written on that paper is they want you to check your longitudinal frame members. I don't know what genius in Tallahassee thought up that term. But basically, it's your lower and upper frame rails all the way to the back of that trailer. You're going to make sure they're both securely mounted, they're not cracked, they're not bent in any way. When you get to where these 4 rivets start, it's 4 individual rivets. That's where your cross members begin. Tell him you're going to check all your cross members all the way to the back of that trailer, making sure none of them are bent, broken, loose, or missing. At the same time, you're going to tell him I'm going to check the entire floor on that trailer, making sure I have no holes and no damage of any type. Then, landing gear. This landing gear mounting pad, making sure they're securely mounted. They're not cracked, they're not damaged, they don't have any missing nuts or bolts. Landing gear leg, all the way in a fully up position. This handle is secured right there in that cradle or bracket provided for it. Tell him you're going to make sure that both that landing gear handle and the landing gear itself does not have any missing nuts, bolts, or parts whatsoever. Then you're going to go all the way to the back. What's up, dude? Doesn't matter where you start at. I like to start underneath the truck and work my way out. Air hose, once again. Fittings at each end, securely mounted and not leaking. Air hose itself, not cut or frayed or leaking. Brake chamber, securely mounted, not cracked, dented, or leaking. No loose or missing clamps. On the other side of it is a slack adjuster. Make sure it's securely mounted. Both it and the push rod have no bent, broken, loose, or missing parts. And when you pull on that slack adjuster, that push rod cannot move more than 1 inch with the brakes released. Brake drums, no holes, dents, or cracks. Brake lining, not worn too thin. No oil or grease on either the brake drum or the brake lining. Spring hangers, not cracked, not damaged, not missing any nuts or bolts. Right in here in the center of it, there's a bushing. You got to make sure it's not damaged, it's not missing. That's a square bar. That's a round one. That's a torsion bar. You got to make sure it's securely mounted. It's not bent. It's not cracked. The reason this one's square and this one's round, this one's adjustable. That's how you set the alignment on the axles. Okay, you loosen these clamps at each end, and that one turns, and it either expands or gets shorter, and that's how you set the alignment. That side's fixed, this side moves around. Leaf springs, not broken, missing, or shifted. Sometimes you'll have torsion bars and not leaf springs. On this one, you got both of them. Sometimes you have airbags, like on that stainless steel sided trailer out here. It's got airbags and shock absorbers and U-bolts and nothing else. Doesn't have torsion bars, doesn't have hangers, doesn't have bushings, doesn't have leaf springs. So don't get under this trailer or the 45 and start talking about airbags and shock absorbers, because he'll know you're a dumbass, because it doesn't have airbags and shock absorbers. By the same token, don't get under that little trailer over there and start talking about spring hangers and torsion bars and leaf springs, because again, he'll know you're a dumbass. Don't tell him about anything you don't see, but by God, if you see it, try to remember to say it so you get the point for it. U-bolts. Anyway, leaf springs, if I didn't say, not broken, missing, or shifted. U-bolts, not broken, loose, or missing. Tires, all 4 of these sidewalls, no cuts, no damage. Tires evenly worn, no less than or a minimum of 2 32 of an inch tread depth. Make sure you check both your valve stems and caps, making sure they're not broken, damaged, or missing. You're going to use an air pressure gauge right there at that point to make sure that these tires are properly inflated to manufacturer's specifications. This is a dual set of wheels once again, and I missed something. Dual set of wheels once again. Make sure the space between those dual wheels, that bud spacing as it's called, and this is an actual bud wheel, that one up there is not. I'll show you what I mean in a minute. Make sure that space is even all the way around, no damage or debris. If you see a spacer, make sure it's not broken, damaged, or rusting through. Can anybody tell me what I missed? It's a sliding trailer tandem. If you see these holes in a tandem, that means it's a sliding trailer tandem. Tell him I'm going to make sure those slide pins are in the secured position. I'm going to make sure this sliding tandem release handle is locked in that bracket right there in the secured position. So, rims, not cracked, not bent, no signs of illegal welds. Lug nuts. First, you're going to make sure they're all there and they're not missing. You're going to make sure they appear tight and not loose because you see no shiny threads or rust trails showing. You're also going to check each and every lug nut hole, making sure you have no cracks and no damage whatsoever. Then you're going to check that hub seal, making sure it's securely mounted and not leaking, and that one does indeed have a sight glass. You would use that sight glass to make sure that oil level is filled to an adequate amount. What I was talking about, bud wheels. Y'all see how weird that lug nut looks? Look at the lug nuts. Yeah. See how strange that lug nut looks? See how the end of it is square, the end of the stud is square? That's because that's not a stud. That's 2 lug nuts. You've got an inside set of studs. When you put the inside wheel on, it's got its own lug nut. And then when you put the outside wheel on, it's got a separate lug nut that threads down over the outside of that threaded lug nut. I hate bud wheels because the ones on the inside are notorious for loosening up, and then that'll break the center out of your inside wheel. They just suck. Plus, if you don't have the special socket with the square drive to tighten that inside one up, or if that socket gets worn, it'll beat the ends of that lug nut up to the point that they'll just start spinning on there without tightening it up. I do not like a setup like that. In the first place, I'm a lazy bastard, and it's just twice the work. So, if you get under the trailer to show him stuff, don't hit your head, and especially don't catch the middle of your back, about the shoulder blades right there, because that hurts worse than hitting it with your head. It'll put you right back down on your knees, rolling around, whimpering and slobbering and everything, and your coworkers will be laughing at you and shit. So, if you got a tandem axle, this truck most certainly has one. The 45 has one. Little trailer does not. But if you see a second axle, tell him I'm going to check that axle just like I checked this axle. Okay? When you move to the back of the truck, you got to tell him about the doors and the lights and the reflective tape. If it's the 45-foot trailer, it's got a lift gate. You got to tell him about that too. Doesn't matter where you start. I like to start with the lights. So there's 5 lights you got to talk about on the back of this truck. There's tail lights, left and right turn signals, 4-way hazards, brake lights, any clearance lights you have. All those lights, as well as your reflectors on the back of this truck, need to be clean, not broken, not missing. Every light and reflector on the back of this truck you need to be concerned about is going to be red. Reflective tape, you got to make sure it's all there and it's present. You're going to tell him you're going to make sure that door is securely mounted. It's not cracked or damaged. Your hinges and hardware are all secure and they're not missing or cracked or damaged. You've got to tell him, but you don't have to demonstrate that you would make sure your door opens and closes properly and that this door latch opens and closes properly. The 45-foot trailer has a 2.5 or 3 foot wide lift gate on it. If you see that lift gate, you have to tell him you're going to make sure that lift gate is all the way up in a secured position and it doesn't have any hydraulic fluid leaking out from underneath it and it's missing no nuts, bolts, or parts. Yes.